The Athene Real Talk Podcast explores controversial ideas to stimulate debate and active thinking. These ideas do not always reflect Athene's personal views. Welcome to the Athene Real Talk Podcast.
He has been called the best gamer in the world, hands down.
World-famous gamer and philanthropist Athene.
Gaming for Good, it's called, has raised more than $20 million.
Using his notoriety to raise money for charity.
On activism, science, culture, and self-development.
Proud to have him in the studio today. I would not want to take you on in a video game.
What I started realizing is that a lot of people, when their certain needs do not get fulfilled, then they are trapped inside that awareness where they try to fulfill that need. If you're struggling to survive because you don't have food, your entire awareness, your entire moral compass and life view will be focused on getting food. It's quite simple, right? That's something everybody can agree with. It's something I can understand, and it's the only need that I was actually just allowing myself to see. But after the physical need is basically fulfilled, you need also safety. You need to feel safe. It's not just right now you gotta survive, you gotta have a house, you gotta have warmth. And the thing is that then that becomes your focus. Making money, making sure you can take care of your own safety. And you have like schematics that already talk about these things. But the problem is that these needs, when they are fulfilled, you don't see them. A lot of people, when they are struggling with their own problems, they don't put it in context and say like, oh, there's people that don't even eat, because you take for granted what you have. It's actually only when you're truly fully actualized that you can have a real overview and understand how to help people to basically get fully fulfilled. But the thing is though, like, what is extremely important to understand is that these needs, safety for example, gets translated based on how you grew up. Our need for safety very much translate from many people to the need to be financially independent, which is making money. But 5,000 years ago, there was no such a thing as money. Like, there was tribes that didn't work with money. And as a result, the need for safety didn't translate into wanting to go work. Your need to feel safe translated into, for example, building a mud hut. And it's basically society and your environment that molds you into how you channel the needs you want. It's your beliefs. That's a very important one. And the reason why it's very important is because if you went to a traumatic experience where your need was not fulfilled, then you might, when you don't go through it and experience it and whatever, you might your entire life be stuck in that need. And there's actually quite some interesting studies, for example, with people that went in Auschwitz, that afterwards, the people that survived Auschwitz were constantly focused on trying to gather food, because they had this traumatic experience where they didn't have enough food. And as a result, they just kept gathering food for their entire life. They've always been stuck in this physical, primal state. But it's not just for the physical needs, it's also for safety. If you grow up and your family was very poor or whatever, you can literally have this urge of, I need money. And literally, you can keep making money. It's never saturable. And the way you can overcome that is by actually just experiencing this lack of safety or this lack of need and go to the essence of experiencing it. And by doing so, you can not only experience it, but you can overcome it on an emotional level. And what it does then, it translates into either taking action or accepting. And if you are feeling safe, that's something actually that helps a lot of people. When you're stuck in safety, really realizing on a fundamental level that you are fine, that society won't throw you in the garbage, and that the worst case scenario is still a safe case scenario, really allows you to relieve all this frustration or this fear or anxiety about the future. Because that's something a lot of people have. Like, when you're strapped inside safety, you always look at the future. You have this strong anxiety about things going wrong into the future. But if you understand on a fundamental level, emotionally, that you are fine, that you're safe, you can release that, feel catharsis, and suddenly you experience this dopamine rush. They also call it paradigm shift. This dopamine rush, which makes you clear-headed for a while. Actually, it's quite fascinating because I'm realizing this more and more. Like, what basically happens is you experience a very strong dopamine rush, which makes you very clear-minded and gives you access to your more reasonable part of the brain, because your more primitive part of the brain is satisfied, is saturated. But then, once that wears off, once these dopamine rushes wears off, you get back to a state where you go back to what you need. And if it's not safety, or if it's not your physical needs, it goes up. Then it's about love and belonging. This pyramid is quite known in psychology. There is quite some equivalence around it, and it's a very interesting one because I've been looking into it for quite a while in the past as well, but I never really grasped it because I couldn't translate it into this setting, but mainly because when I think about safety, I look at safety within my perspective. Then I go like, people are safe, right? So they cannot be trapped in safety, but it's because I conceptualize it. The reason why I didn't understand is because I didn't go about it from an emotional angle, but people can still be trapped into safety even when they are safe because it's about how they feel. And being able to go through your feelings and really experiencing, actually following your triggers is a very, very powerful way of going about things. Really following your triggers and not push yourself away from fear. Like if you feel sad or whatever, go, keep following the emotion. It really makes you learn a lot more about yourself and makes you really like overcome certain fixations or frustrations you experience. But basically, these ways are very, very helpful for you to be able to help yourself. Of course, it's not always as handy. Let's say you're in a situation where you are dependent of your environment and your need for safety cannot be fulfilled by yourself because of a handicap or whatever, then obviously you're in a harder spot because you can't get it out of yourself. And that's the thing. If our needs cannot be fulfilled from within, we always look to fulfill it from outside. And being able to find a way to fulfill your needs from within is the way you can help yourself, but that's a lot harder, of course, than if it's fulfilled from the outside, where you get the proper guidance. Because even that, you can get your needs fulfilled from the outside when it gets channeled properly. And that's another thing I want to say, because we have all these needs, right? These physical needs, we have these safety needs, we have these emotional needs. But the thing is though, and this is very important because now I'm going to talk about love and belonging. The reason why I'm going to talk about love and belonging is because the majority of the people watching the stream right now is stuck in there. And that doesn't mean that is a bad thing, because it's not about like labeling yourself and saying like, oh, I'm wrong, I'm bad or whatever. It's not about that, because doing so, labeling yourself and judging yourself and beating yourself up only gets you further away. It's by understanding and emotionally experiencing yourself and without judgment that you can actually truly grow out of it or grow above it. But basically, love and belonging, which is, I think, the layer that most people on the planet in the more advanced society are stuck in, the way you can solve it is by following the emotions and basically get it out of yourself. The problem is, though, that it's really hard. It's extremely hard to get it out of yourself. And what people do instead, honestly, guys, really think about this, because this can help you tremendously. The way you fulfill it is by channeling it to something that gives it to you. So let's say, for example, you have friends and these friends have a strong ideology. Then basically the identity of being a communist or a socialist or alt-right or a social justice warrior or whatever allows you to fulfill that sense of belonging. And as a result, what you do is you constantly strengthen your identity in order to belong. And because you get a feedback loop where people do accept you for being an alt-righter or a socialist or whatever, or even in religion, being a Catholic or a Muslim, or you just feel like you belong. And as a result, you can grow outside the need to belong because you get the sense of you're being understood and such. But the thing is, though, you never truly get understood. You don't get understood for your essence, for who you are. You get understood for the Muslim you are, or for the Christian you are, or for the socialist you are. And as a result, you have this strong emotional attachment to being a socialist or a Muslim or whatever because it fulfills your needs. And the thing is that being aware of this, that your attachments are merely your channels, your bridges to fulfill your core needs, can help you tremendously, because by following the emotion, you can go to the need of belonging, for example, or safety or accomplishment or whatever, and wonder how you can give it to yourself in a way that is more pure, that comes from you. And that requires quite some confidence. I understand it's quite a lot to ask when you have low self-esteem. But low self-esteem is the result of not being able to take care of your own needs. And when you're in social settings or whatever, you can very easily get triggered when your needs are being threatened. But if you truly know on a fundamental level that you can sustain and provide for yourself, emotionally and physically, then this confidence, this natural confidence comes naturally. You don't feel threatened anymore because nobody can actually do something to you. And that's why following your triggers is a very, very good tip. Whenever you get triggered, just follow the emotion and wonder where it comes from. and try to track it to which need that gets threatened. And a lot of the times it's this need of being accepted or understood. And that's why when someone doesn't understand you, you get angry. But it does the opposite. By getting angry, you basically make it worse. And we literally live in a world where everybody is not communicating with each other, where everybody is actually enhancing each other's anger. And that's why cognitive empathy is so important. Being able to put yourself in other people's shoes and take away your way of looking at things really allows you to create this bridge to make people feel truly accepted and understood. But if it gets channeled wrongly, if someone talks to you about political view and says like this and that, really identity, strong identity, then it's important to understand that it's merely a symptom and go to the root of why he has this urge to have this strong political identity. And if you go and you walk this path, his path basically, you always come to these primal needs that we have throughout time and how they express themselves based on the culture and the time we live. Because 1,000 years ago, there was no such a thing as strong identity about socialism or whatever, because socialism didn't exist. Go 5,000 years ago and the identity of Muslim, being a Muslim, did not exist. So basically, these strong identities that people have is merely the way that through evolution and through time, we started trying to fulfill our needs, our primal needs, which is physical needs, safety, love and belonging, esteem, sense of accomplishment, and also, finally, actualization. And the thing is, being aware that your attachments are merely your ways of providing for your needs, and that by going to the essence of why you even have these attachments in the first place, you can not only dissolve your attachments, but you can provide for them in much more effective ways that will allow you to grow above it. And this is actually something that I realized. I realized this yesterday. Basically, I was always wondering, how can I make people grow here in a way that is helping them the most? And there was a lack of information I had. First of all, when I was listening to people, I was not listening to their needs. I was listening to how they channel their needs. And when they channel their needs in a way that is not really truly related to their needs, but it's merely can be deflection or can be identity or whatever, I had very little understanding. Because I was like, but this is just fake. This is not true. This is not pure. You're lying to yourself. Problem is that I went about it conceptualizing. I used my concept. I didn't feel the person. I went about it with concepts. And I said like, oh, this and that. But the thing is, if you go with emotionally relating to the person, making them feel understood, then you can actually follow their path and go to what their actual need is below their attachments. So when you have a strong identity or strong validation seeking, you have this strong sense of belonging. You want to be loved. You want to belong. And I always try to see things on how can I fix this stuff as soon as possible. But that mindset made me actually put people into a situation where the way they could belong and fit in this place is by pretending they don't want to belong because that was looked down upon. And this really creates all this inner conflict where people don't fully manage to fulfill these needs that we all have as humans. That component is essential. Being able to understand that people's attachments, it's not something wrong, it's just the way they channel what they need. And being able to guide them by understanding them emotionally and listening to them through cognitive empathy and really compassionate empathy, you can actually go to the source of why they have these attachments in the first place and find a way how they can provide for that themselves without the need of their environment. But even if they need the environment, let's say like you really cannot give yourself love, but you understand this, even then, by just having an environment that truly makes you belong and makes you feel accepted for who you are and how you are, for your essence, then rather than strengthening your attachments, which is your identity in order to fulfill your love or your sense of belonging, you trust more in your essence. So it's basically, this place should make you feel belonged here for the child in you and not for this pretending of identity or logic or whatever. No, it should be your childlike essence that should feel accepted and understood. And the thing is that it's so fascinating that I don't even need to help people to love themselves because that can be really hard. This place just has to become something that really allows people to truly feel like they belong and feel accepted and feel really understood by people around here. But not for their attachments that they use to channel, but for their essence. And when it gets channeled properly, when you get enough love and belonging sense for the right reasons, you grow out of it. Your inner child grows up, and at a certain point, it doesn't need it anymore. And it goes to the next stage of development. It's a huge insight. Because on one end, I never wanted to really make people feel belonging for their attachments, because I knew that I was not real. But I never understood that if you make people belong for truly their true essence, for their childlike who they are, that they will grow out of it. Because what I also always connected it in the past, I talked to people so much and always tried to help them through their world and through their attachments, but it's never the root of their need. And it's never this childlike essence, because they feel vulnerable and they have all these coping mechanisms to basically channel their needs through that. But going to the essence and making them vulnerable and helping them in that state allows them to grow, truly grow out of it. And then they will never need the sense of belonging anymore, because they feel nourished. It's like a child. When you grow up as a child and your parents really make you feel very much belonging and nourish you with love and everything, you never had to have a time in your life where you had to love yourself, right? It came naturally, because this childlike essence was nourished properly. And it didn't need all these advanced concepts in order to get the love or the validation by buying a big car or a big house or being good at games or whatever. All these things that you do in order to get validation or to get this sense of belonging is because this child in you was not truly understood and accepted and didn't get nourished. And that's what I want this place to become. I want this place to become a place where people truly feel nourished and belong, their essence, not their attachments, their essence. And when I say not their attachments, I don't say you get to get labeled or judged for attachments. No, it's about just understanding and guiding people to their core essence and make them grow from within. And that is really a nice revelation for me, because I was really struggling on trying to help people with loving themselves. But if the place just makes them feel belonging here, and at the same time for their child essence, pure who they are, by guiding them, making them vulnerable, then the place can provide for it. The environment can give it. After love and belonging is really nourished, and I've seen it actually here myself with people, what comes afterwards is accomplishments. You want a sense of accomplishment. I'm skipping a few things, but it's the main things basically. But even there, we as this place can provide people with this sense of accomplishment by really guiding them, making them understand that on a core level they want to do what's right, they want to do something, they want to accomplish something, if that's where they are in their evolution, and provide them with something that they truly can accomplish. Because a lot of people don't realize it, but the way we live our lives, our needs, our primal needs that have had to find their ways throughout our technological revolution and our culture and our society, was tinkered for the hunter-gatherer. And if you go 10,000 years ago or 20,000 years ago and you take a tribe that has these needs, it perfectly works amazingly. You grow up, this childlike person gets accepted in a family, belongs. Then once it feels accomplished, or once it feels like it belongs, first you have the physical needs, then you have the safety, you have the towns, the little huts, everything is fine. Society is now what happens, you want to belong. You want to belong in the society, but the tribe really helps you and stuff. You feel really great about yourself. Then you want to accomplish something. Then you learn skills. Your father learns you skills. You go hunt. Then you feel actualized. You feel actually really in balance. And that's also what I experience when I go to these tribes in Mali. These people, there's a lot of people there, more like the tribe people, the tribe men, feel really actualized in their world. Of course, when you then throw them into a situation where suddenly they're exposed to TV and stuff, you get all this duality. But when within this simple framework, it worked quite well. And as a result, when society started evolving, we started channeling these needs through these attachments that really take us away from our pure essence of who we are. And being able to understand these things really allow you to very much overcome your limits, but even more so allows me to create an environment where people can truly grow, really truly grow, because acceptance and understanding on an emotional level and even on a conceptual level can be provided by the environment, as much as also, the right guidance and the sense of belonging. And I think a lot of people that are watching the stream right now can really relate to that. Having really true friends that truly understand you for who you are and accept you for who you are. It's something that we really all crave for. Me more in the past than now, because it's completely fulfilled. But it's really something, it's this lack that even draws you to Twitch. It's this lack of belonging, and people feel more belonging to this community. Even in the Twitch chat, when you just type and you feel the sense of connection with other people, even though it's a very basic one. But the thing is though, I think we can level this up. we can level this up to a real community. An environment like this here can truly help people truly actualize themselves by going through it in the most pure, essential way, and not through these attachments that make you always be trapped in this feedback loop where you never really truly feel fulfilled. Yesterday I talked a lot about how to, nourish people to grow and to love themselves, and how cognitive empathy is extremely important in our ability to communicate with one each other. For people that don't know what cognitive empathy is, it's basically putting yourself in the other person's shoes by really trying to imagine what it is to be that person, where he comes from, why he says what he says through their experience, rather than to judge them through your own way of looking at the world. And it's quite hard. It requires a lot of cognitive processing power, but it allows you to actually understand people a lot better. And the thing is that cognitive empathy is being given as an essential communication tool that is crucial in our society, but it is not the cure for everything, because cognitive empathy works a certain way, and I've been trying out and looking at it, and I understand why cognitive empathy is very rare in our society. Because the dynamics work like this. When you use cognitive empathy, you just put yourself in the other person's shoes, right? And you basically drop your own experience. You also got to be quite vulnerable. When I say vulnerable, you got to really not be inside your head. You just got to be pure. You got to be in the moment. The problem is, though, that you can get out of that state of cognitive empathy when you feel threatened. So when the person you're talking to and use cognitive empathy on is threatening you, and when I say threatening you, I don't mean like with a knife or something. I'm just saying like it's threatening your own needs. Then what you will do is you will automatically break this connection where you try to understand what it is to be that person and stuff, and you'll go in survival mode. The problem with that is that we live in a society where almost everyone is in scarcity. And as a result, it's very hard to even apply cognitive empathy, because if you show understanding, people can sometimes just very easily threaten your needs. And that's where it goes. Where you are in awareness, you will have an easier or a harder time to use cognitive empathy. And what I mean with that is, like, if you really care a lot about being understood and being accepted, when you use cognitive empathy and the person is not accepting you or understanding you, when you try to really do your effort, then it's very easy to get triggered and go like, hey, I'm putting effort trying to understand you and you're misinterpreting what I'm saying or whatever. You can very easily break that feedback loop and as a result, get back into your primal brain. A way to overcome that is by, when you experience the threat or the trigger while you use cognitive empathy, is to understand where it comes from, follow the emotion, and as a result, you can overcome it by understanding it. Of course, it requires quite a lot of emotional intelligence and awareness to do so on the spot, but when you're aware of it, you can actually disconnect when you get threatened and reconnect because you see understanding. You even use more cognitive empathy and you go like, yeah, but it's not like this person doesn't understand me. It's more like this person just doesn't understand how cognitive empathy works. That is one thing. That is one aspect of cognitive empathy that is very essential to know, because else when you try cognitive empathy and you go and you talk to people, when they threaten you, you will just get out of it and wonder like this doesn't work. You'll just get pissed and frustrated. Another one is that when you really truly understand and emotionally resonate with someone, people that are very needy can impose expectations or impose certain beliefs on you. And when these expectations or these beliefs threaten your needs, also in a practical sense, then you are literally forced to draw a line. And what I mean with that is, let's say, for example, you try to really understand your best friend, and your best friend, when he's being understood, what he says is he's blaming you because you're not playing enough video games with him. Then basically, if that is not something that you crave for, that you don't need, playing video games with him, then basically he's actually at that point imposing expectations like, if you really want to understand me, you need to do this. And then what is important is just, rather than getting triggered and pushing him away, like, hey, what the fuck is your problem? Is just explain like, listen, you cannot have these expectations. It's not fine. It's not fine to have these expectations and impose them on me. And that's how we have a much more pure relationship. But that's something the person has to reflect on. Something very hard that you can impose. You can just say that and be really pure and full of integrity where you point it out. But the reason why I'm mentioning these things is because cognitive empathy is not just a universal fix for all the issues. And that's the thing what I realize is, it is because of this mechanic that when you feel threatened, you behave in a way that works, that people don't use cognitive empathy. What I've realized is, for example, in certain relationships, is that I get more done when I use ego than when I use cognitive empathy, because people try to take advantage. Well, when I say ego, I mean like where I'm just more blunt. Of course, I can find the best of both worlds and just, even when they try to take advantage of me, just be really adult and mature and just explain them like this is not fine to do, and that's what I'm going to do from now on. But I'm just saying, like, the reason why people do not use cognitive empathy is because they get more rewarded by not using it in our current society. So yeah, like, being able to use cognitive empathy is only highly functional or highly impactful or effective when you are in the proper environment or when you deal with people where using cognitive empathy does not get punished. Of course, using cognitive empathy is always good to use, but you need to have really a lot of emotional intelligence and awareness to make it something that can be very useful. If you're in a very toxic environment, it's really hard. It's not a fortunate realization, because what it means is that a lot of people are in a really bad spot when their environment is really not so stimulating, to put it nice.
Subscribe to youtube.com/AtheneWins. Watch the live stream at twitch.tv/AtheneLive and follow the real Athene on Snapchat.